Well, what a blessing. Storm kind of missed it. A lot of light show last night. A lot of wind, pretty good rain. I thank God for safety in the storm. I thought about Nahum chapter 1, verse 23. The Lord hath his way in the whirlwind and the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. Genesis chapter number 1. Been dealing with theology, the doctrine of God, theos, God, ology, the whole God, the Word of God. How do you learn about God? Well, you can learn experientially by looking around you, but then you can take the Bible and you learn a whole lot more about Him. I've been dealing with His attributes. What I want to look at this morning is the omniscience of God. The omniscience of God. A concept that is beyond human comprehension, all right? When you are finite and you're trying to figure out the infinite, boy, you run into a whole lot of problems. But the omniscience of God, while humanity is ever learning and never coming to the knowledge of the truth, isn't that something? As Janus and Jambres, who were they? They were the two magicians that Moses faced before Pharaoh. They're not named in the book of Exodus, but they are named in the New Testament. Janus and Jambres, and the Bible says they're ever learning. They were scholars. They were learning, but never coming to the knowledge of truth. So what we're trying to do with the Word of God is come to the truth itself. I thank God this morning that God is not learning anything. God knows everything. And that's a concept you say, how could we believe that? I'll show you just a few minutes. You want to know how much God knows? We'll look at just a little bit, a tiny little bit of what God knows and doesn't even have to think about it, right? Because He is knowledge. It'll be our Lincoln. They attribute it to Him. He got it to somebody else. But He used to say all the time, has it ever occurred to you that nothing has ever occurred to God? God knows the end of the day. So the word omniscience comes from two words, omnis, which means all, and science, which means knowing. So God is all science. God is all knowing. God is all wisdom. This morning, omniscience refers to the capacity to know everything infinitely, including thoughts, feelings, life, the universe. That really means all-knowing. God sure does do that. Now, we're going to go back at verse number 1, Genesis chapter 1. I want you to look at verse 1 again. Hey, there's more theology in verse number 1 than we can dig out in a lifetime. In the beginning, God created. You see in verse number 3, and God said. What did He do? Ex nihilo, nothing in His hand. God stood out on nothing with nothing in His hand, and He spoke this thing into existence. I'm going to deal with the power of God here shortly. The omniscience of God, found in that word God created. When you get to verse number, let's see, 27, 28, let me look it up here real quick. You get up to verse number 26 through 8. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth on the earth. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God created He him, male and female created He him. That's, you say, well, that's kind of transgender. That's not transgender, folks. Man has the X and the Y chromosome. A woman has two X chromosomes. I hope everybody got that. The X chromosome actually has to do with your immune system. Women generally have a stronger immune system. Little girls are stronger than little boys up to a degree. The Y chromosome determines the sex of the child. So in the day that God made Adam, He made Eve in Adam. That's why He took Eve out of Adam. Now look at verse 28. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. Let me say at this point, you're not an animal. You tell people they're animals, they act like animals. We're not like the deer. We're not like the raccoon. We're not like the elephant. We're not like the lion. We are different from them. I want you to notice he spoke again in verse number 31. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. The morning, the evening, the morning was 6 days. So we find in Genesis chapter number 1 that God creates and completes his creation in that length of time. The heavens and the earth and all that in them is. So the Bible says that God created them in 6 days, and then on the seventh that he rested. But I thought about the word behold. The master designer looked at what he did and looked at what he said, behold. Boy, hey, God wasn't surprised. He's talking to man, and behold, it was very good. I thought about the word behold. The word behold is found 1,336 times in the Bible. You wouldn't have figured that, would you? 1,336 times. The past tense of behold is beheld, and that's found 53 times in your Bible. Now, what's behold mean? Behold means very simply love, see, surprise, something appears. You turn around and behold, you see something that surprises you, all right? Very strong word. But God used that, something that suddenly appeared, but something that's a surprise that suddenly appeared. I want to look at some relative truth this morning. Not that God was surprised, but his creation was one of great beauty and absolute perfection, and his only critique of his creation was it was very good. If God says it's very good, you can write it down. Now, the relative truth of God's infinite knowledge and wisdom is found in his creation, the heavens and the earth and man. I call evolutions, and I want you to listen to this, the fool's folly. You say, who are these evolutionists? The fools. The Bible said fool has said in his heart, thinking of God. You say, why? I'm going to show you why this thing did just a series of accidents, a big explosion. And by the way, I've been around explosions. Worked in the mines for years. I have set off numerous cases of explosives. I have never set off a shot, walked around, let the smoke clear out, and found a brand new Cadillac or Lincoln or Rolls Royce or anything in there. Nothing in the history of mankind and this universe has an explosion ever created anything but destruction and chaos. Now, I'm not going to deal with them, but it's a fool folly. I thought about God's omniscience. It's found here in the creation of his heavens. There are 3 heavens actually found in the Scripture, although Genesis 1:1 reveals 2 of them. Isaiah said this, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. He talks about the heavens itself. I want to deal with 2 heavens just for a moment. The first heaven, what is that? We've got 2 heavens. In the beginning, he created the heavens singular of earth. He's talking about he created the earth and our breathable atmosphere that goes around it. You better thank God that it's still the same today as it was when God created it. But we've got a breathable atmosphere. They can't find life anyplace else. One, they can't find water. Nothing to support that life. They can't find breathable air. They go to Mars, they go to the moon, where they got to put on all this outfit on in order for them to breathe out of their oxygen tanks. But I thought about our breathable air. Its reliability and stability are really an amazing thing. Our heaven always remains consistent. It protects us from the sun's rays and provides the elements necessary for life. I just want to say this morning that it is the Word, the makeup of a divine genius that put this thing together. Precisely right for life and the generation of plant and animal life. Over in 2 Peter, he made a statement, but the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. We'll find the elements that will be on fire later. Now, I thought about the makeup of our air. You know, it's got to be just right. Okay? So from the largest to the smallest, the composition of Earth's atmosphere includes nitrogen, oxygen, argon, CO2, and trace gases. Nitrogen, 78.1% of the air you breathe is actually nitrogen. If you notice potato chip bags, you know, I used to complain they swell them up, make them look like they're full when they're not full. That's not why they swell them up. They put nitrogen in there. They're now putting nitrogen in automobile tires. But they put nitrogen in there, and what it does, it maintains the freshness of that potato chip until you open that bag. 78.1. Oxygen is 20.9%. Argon, 0.93. Carbon dioxide, 0.04. These are your primary components of it. Carbon is the most important element for building molecules essential for living organisms. The remaining portion of the atmosphere consists of trace gases, neon, helium, methane, and krypton. And by the way, krypton was not brought here by Superman. Like krypton is a part of our atmosphere field that we breathe. So we find that it's made up of a perfect design. Perfect design. In the mines, they used to carry a canary into the mines. People say, well, why did they do that? Because of the gas? No. Because a canary will pass out and die at 17% oxygen. 17% oxygen is still breathable for humans, but now you're getting down in a very critical area. So what happened was they saw the bird die, they backed up. They had to get more oxygen in there in order to support life in there. So we find how breathable the atmosphere is. It's perfectly renewable. It renews itself through something called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is what takes place with your plants out here. You didn't know that your plants are what's putting off your oxygen for you to breathe. We breathe out carbon dioxide. The plants thrive on carbon dioxide. They take the carbon dioxide in, and through water, carbon dioxide, and sunlight, they have what's called photosynthesis. That's what gives the green color to everything that's out there, and it replaces all the time the oxygen back in the air. So it's perfectly renewable. I often said, boy, evolution must have been a real smart thing to figure all this out. But he went on and said this: plants use carbon dioxide along with water, sunlight, and produce breathable oxygen. The second heaven is our universe. Now, we'll give a little disclaimer. Talk about this big thing up here, all right? They say it's still expanding. It's not still expanding. They're just able, with better equipment, to see farther. They keep watching with Hubble and everything. They see more. The more they see, the bigger this thing gets. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some information that was given by astronomers. Psalm chapter 19, verse 1 said to the chief musician, the Psalm of David, the heavens declare the glory of God. The universe, according to their estimate, is about 92 billion light years in diameter. 92 billion light years. You say, what's a light year? Light year is the distance that a ray of light can move within a year. Now, light moves at 186,000 miles per second. You're talking about 50 times around the earth in 1 second. I mean, this light is moving on. So a light year is approximately 6 trillion miles in distance. You take 6 trillion times 92 billion, and you will find just how far this thing is. This is what they say it is, and they're not seeing to the end of it. A modern spacecraft, it will take 450 million light years to reach the center of our galaxy alone. That's our galaxy alone. 450 million light years to reach the center of this thing. Give you some statistics concerning your universe. Superclusters in the visible universe, there are 10 million. Galaxy groups in the visible universe, 25 billion. Large galaxy groups in the visible universe, 350 billion of them. Dwarf galaxies in the visible universe, 7 trillion of them. And stars in the visible universe, 30 billion trillion stars. And the Bible said that God named them all. I'm talking about omniscience. Omniscience is found in our breathable air. It's also found in this great universe out here that only God could do that. I thought about God's omniscience is found in the creation of His earth. Oh, what a wonderful thing when He made this earth. You know, He said in verse number 2, the earth was without form and void. You say, well, why was it without form and void? Because one, darkness was on at the face of the deep. So we found 2 things covered it that made it without form and void. One, water covered everything, and 2, there was no light. He didn't say that it was wrecked or messed up. He just said it was not seeable at that particular time. And then God said, let there be light. And then it became visible. And then God began to separate the waters and make the firmament. Now, I thought about the earth itself. One of the most amazing things that Solomon deals with in Ecclesiastes is the hydrological cycle of the water that takes place. It's so essential to our life. Now, we're getting more and more polluted waters, and I was a little boy, we go down on our streets out in the woods to drink out of creeks. How many of you ever did that? How many of you think you can't do it today? Well, let me tell you something. You've got to be careful what you drink. We lay down. I mean, we just make sure we didn't suck down a minute or a crawdad. Make sure we got them out of the way. Just suck that water up that went on. Hey, your water cycle. You see, the earth, it has a septic tank. All your dirty water at home runs into a septic tank. The septic tanks are your seas and your oceans. They combine several things together. All this dirty water runs to the rivers of Ocean, all the rivers run to the sea, and dirty water runs into there. And if you get up high down at Myrtle Beach and look down, you can see the foam and see the filth that's in these waves that's coming in and washing up. It's an agitator. It's a washing machine. The agitation of the movement of that water, and then salt is the cleanser. You know, we used to brush our teeth with salt. We didn't have money to buy toothpaste all the time. Just wet it, put it in salt, brush your teeth. It's abrasive. It takes stains off. It cleans. Salt is a cleanser. These nasal process, they use salt. Is what they use in order to clean your nasal out. So what happens is the dirty water runs to the sea, agitation and salt. What it does, it separates the filth from it. The filth drops to the bottom of the ocean in sediment. The clear salt water comes up to the top, and then the sun's rays begin to evaporate that pure water off of the top of that ocean, put it in cloud form, bring it into the land, and it rains, and you've got fresh water. That cycle alone shows you the absolute wisdom of God. I thought about the life that earth contains. There are 73,000 discovered species of trees. They said approximately 9,000 yet to discover. I don't know if they hadn't discovered them. I don't know how they can tell you how many's out there. But I'm taking their figures. There are 8,750,000 species of plant and fungi. with approximately 80% of these being hypothetical. What's he talking about? Well, a hypothesis is an unproven theory, all right? It's something that they can't prove that they think might be so. There are 7,770,000 species of animals and insects, 34,000 species of fish, and everything contains within itself the seed to reproduce after its time. One of the most amazing things with these figures is none of these things reproduce with each other. They have seed and brains. I've often said I've got about 5 pounds of oak trees in my backyard in the woods, drop their acorns right at the bottom, the feet of the next tree, and they never end up with a white red oak or red pin oak. You know, listen, God made these things. He said in the book of Genesis, they won't cross. Anything you see that is a hybrid is man-made. I'm talking about the wisdom of God. He created every one of these with a perfect seed to bring forth a perfect reproduction of the one that had that seed within it. Everything is right. I thought the omniscience of God is certainly found in the creation of your human body. David made a statement. He said, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I'll tell you what, this body that you've got is the most amazing thing in this universe. I mean, all the working parts that are different that work together for the good of all. The human body contains nearly 100 trillion cells. There are at least 9 times as many bacteria in the human body as cells. We live in days when they kill bacteria. Everybody got these hand sanitizers, all right? That's why your immune system is compromised. If you don't take in bacteria into your body cannot function. Most of these cells, most of that is bacteria itself. God made bacteria for something. Anytime you go on antibiotics, it's a good thing to go down and get some proactive something or other to generate and get that thing back going. In our septic tank, about once a month, I'll take 3 packs of dry yeast, pour them in the commode, and flush them down. You say why? Because things like bleach and other things kill bacteria. So you lose the bacteria which dissolves the waste, and we have to reactivate it. Old people used to throw a dead chicken in there, and as it began to rot, it created the bacteria that's so necessary. I'm talking about bacteria in your body. People today, their immune system. When I was a boy, we took no antibiotics. We had no hand sanitizers. We didn't wash our hands when we ate half the time unless Mama jerked a knot in our tail. We'd run in there, we just kind of wipe them off a little bit and going out. Listen, we'd eat a pound of dirt a day. And what happens, that gives you a good immune system. So we find the average adult takes over 20,000 breaths every day. Your kidneys produce about 200 quarts. That's 50 gallons of blood each day to filter out about 2 quarts of wasted water. Infants are born with approximately 300 bones, but as they grow, some of these fuse together, leaving in the normal adult about 205 separate bones in the body. More than half of your bones are in your hands, wrists, feet, and ankles. Every second, your body produces 25 million new cells. Think about it. The largest bone in the human body is the femur, also known as the thigh bone. The human heart is a multifaceted pump that circulates the blood to every cell in the body and is good for approximately 1 billion beats in a lifetime. We could go on and on. I just want to say that in our body itself shows you the wisdom of God, that God put everything in you that you need, not only to live, but to live well and to live long. The wisdom of God. I cannot see how a doctor or a nurse could ever be an atheist. It makes no sense at all if they know anything about the human body. So So we find our bodies fearfully and wonderfully made. Our minds are fearfully and wonderfully made. They call it gray matter. You ever heard of gray matter? They say it's just electrical impulses going through. Listen, they can't figure out what this mind is because the mind is so much more than that. But the human brain is the most complex, powerful organ in most of your bodies. I wonder sometimes how some people's brains work or don't work or whatever, and they do some dumb stuff. But the human brain, it's roughly a 3-pound organ comprised of billions of neutrons. It orchestrates everything we think, feel, do. It controls bodily functions to allow us to dream and learn and solve complex problems. We do some things that are automatic responses. I don't think about breathing. I don't think about my heart beating. These are things that your brain does to keep that body going at the same time. I thank God I'm not like the blonde that had on earphones and they told her to take them off. She said, I can't, I'll die. They kept telling her. Finally, they said, take them off. She did, and she died. You picked them up, put them on, and said, breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. That, aren't you glad God made your body in such a way that your body has automated responses that causes that thing to work? Well, I thought about the brain. Some studies suggest that 95% of brain activity occurs unconsciously. They say you don't use your brain. You use your brain, which is unconscious. Handling tasks like regulating heartbeat, digestion, breathing, as well as influencing emotions, memory, decision making. This unconsciousness for processing helps the brain manage essential functions automatically. The brain processes at a staggering speed, with estimates suggesting it can perform 1 quintillion calculations per second when integrating sensory input, decision-making memory. Now, you say, why did you say all that? I said all that to say this. The omniscience of God. God just simply formed Adam out of the dust of the earth. If you take your body today and they broke it down, you'd be, I guess with inflation, probably $8 or $10. It's about $2.95 when I was a kid. But that's all your body is worth with the materials that are put into it. And yet God took the dust of the earth. That's why when you die, you go back to the dust of the earth. The body will go back to the dust again. So I thought about the knowledge of God tonight. Over in Job, he said this, dost thou know balancing of the clouds and the wondrous works of him which is perfect in knowledge? That storm that came last night came in the perfect knowledge of God. I quoted this morning in Nahum chapter 1, verse number 3. The Bible said the Lord hath his way in the whirlwind, the storm of dust, with the clouds of his feet. Well, I thought about that thing as it came, the power. And I hate it for the people that perished in the storm, especially you get into the Midwestern states, and that's where most of your casualties normally are. That's just simply an extension of what they call Tornado Alley. People choose to live there. I choose to live in Lawrence, South Carolina. I'm not knocking them. They can duck and dodge all they want. We took a trip out there one day. My dad stopped at a little store and out in Kansas, and he was talking about the tornadoes. The man standing over beside him said, I've already built 3 times on the same property. My dad, being the country boy he was, looked at him and said, you're not very smart, are you? Moved to South Carolina. The knowledge of God. Over in 1 John chapter number 3, the Bible says that God is greater than our heart and knoweth all things. Over in Matthew chapter number 10, are not 2 sparrows worth a farthing? One of them shall not fall to the ground without your Father, but the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Every bird or anything that falls to the ground, God knows. Every head we've got in here, God has already numbered the hair or lack thereof that's on your head. God didn't say you got 10,986 hairs. He said this one is number 10,980. God has done that. I'm talking about the knowledge of God this morning. Psalms 139, the Bible said, David said, O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my downsetting, my uprising. Thou understandest my thoughts afar off. God not only creates us, God knows what we think before we think. Think about it. God knows what we're going to do before we do it. He understandeth our thoughts afar off. The Bible said that God knew me when I was conceived in secret. Wrote my members in a book. That means how tall I'd be, how heavy I'd be, color of my hair, color of my eyes, everything that's tied up in your genetics. They may want to try to make a boy out of a girl or a girl out of a boy, but genetics prove otherwise. You're either male or you're female, and you cannot change your genetics. But in those genetics, God said everything about you. That's why we get traits from our fathers and our mothers. Sometimes your child will turn their head and you'll see great-grandma or somebody in the side of that face. You're looking at genetics. God placed those genetics there. He said every hair of your head is numbered. Psalms 139, listen, He not only creates us, He sees us, He understands our hearts, He knows our desires and our thoughts before we think them. He said again in 139, verse number 14, I will praise Thee, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are Thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. He goes on down, talks about the omniscience and foreknowledge of God manifested in the makeup of the human being. I hear people say, scientists, that there are no two snowflakes alike. I've never seen anybody observe them. So I'm going to take their word for it. Perfectly alike. No two. Hey, you go to the South Pole, North Pole, you take in the history of the world, the amount of snow that has fallen, they said no two are alike. Did you know that no people are two the same? You can take two genetic, identical twins and they are different. They look different, they act different, they perform different. You can take triplets, they're all different. Even though two of them come from the same egg, if three come, they're still all different. But I'm just talking about the knowledge of God. God foreknew, designed, and brought about what they were. God knows the past, present, and future. There's nothing hid from God. God alone is omniscient. He is eternal and knows all things in eternity. Over in Isaiah 48, He said, I have even from the beginning declared it to be. Before it came to pass, I showed it to thee. We went on and talked about the prophecy of God, the all-knowing one. Did you know that God knew you in eternity past before the earth was ever brought into existence? That's an amazing thought. That's not Calvinism, folks. That's God. God already knew you. He knew you'd be sitting here this morning before you were born. God knew who you would marry or wouldn't marry. God knew what your children would be like. God knows your future, knows your past. God knows your immediate. There's nothing that has ever occurred to God. I'm talking about absolute knowledge. You say, why are you showing us? I want to show you what you're dealing with when you try to outthink God. So many people think they can outsmart God, outthink God, outdo God. Oh, let me tell you something. Over in Isaiah said this, declaring the end from the beginning, from ancient times of things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Because of His omniscience, His counsel, the Word of God is unerring in its wisdom and guidance. Romans chapter number 11 talks about all the depths of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are His judgments, and His ways past finding out. Who hath known the mind of the Lord, or who hath been His counselor, or who hath first given to Him that shall be recompensed unto Him again? For Him and through Him and to Him are all things, to whom be glory forever. Amen. We cannot perceive the mind or the ways of God, but I thank God this morning we can trust Him. Why can you trust God? Because God knows everything. God knows what your future is going to be, what your problem is going to be. God knows how long you'll live. God knows when you die. Hey, put these things in the hand of God and put your trust in God. He said, I'll never leave thee nor forsake thee. He knoweth all things. Boy, there's so much in here. I'm talking about so much. But the omniscience and the foreknowledge of God. Boy, what a blessing. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth without ever giving it a second thought. And put everything in it that we would need for life, enjoyment. Boy, don't you love going vacations? We live in the most beautiful country on the face of this earth. America has every type of topography. We've got the mountains, we've got the valleys, we've got the plains, we've got the coastal plains. We've got everything that you want to see, the waterfalls, the beauty of this great nation in which we live. Go to Utah sometimes. Some man, and kind of a bad joke, said one time that God made Colorado to retire in. Let me tell you, the beauty of this nation. I'm talking about the greatest place on the face of the earth. You don't have to go out of states. Matter of fact, I don't want to leave the states. But you can go anywhere, anytime, and see what God did. We cannot perceive God's mind or His ways, but we can learn to trust His wisdom, His will, and His work. Oh, the depths of both the wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable are His judgments and His ways past finding out. Who hath known the mind of the Lord this morning? I just want you to know that the God that we know today, I thank God He knows everything because I don't. If I want something done, I've often said, never tell a professional how to do his job. If he's a professional, you let him do his job. You say, I don't like the way he did it. He's doing that for a reason, because he's failed in the way you think he ought to do it. So now he's going to do it in his way and make sure it works. I thank God this morning we can trust Him to work it out for us. Amen. Omniscience, all science, all knowing. And that's the God that we know today. Amen. Let's stand this morning. We're going to have an invitation. I need to come down. Well, what a wonderful thing to know that God knows everything. So when you don't know something, you can trust God who does. God helps you get the job done. Then you come.